It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show on your screens tonight. It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show for your home delight. We're talking about Age of Sigmar and anything else that is cool. Talking about Warhammer Fantasy, it's easy to learn the rules. Andy and Remington, Andy and Remington, Andy and Remington Show.
Welcome one and all to yet another spicy, red-hot, sizzling, juicy, succulent, tender, moist, finger-licking good, dishlicious edition of episode 184. And it might be a slow news week, but that's not going to stop us, is it? Mr. Remington, whose camera just turned itself off the
Christ.
instant I'm about to read the thumbnail. You know what? I'm going to let you look at this.
Oh, come on, man.
The audience can see the Remington
Literally
technology
is the show
fail.
starting.
I can confirm it was working perfectly until I said the word Remington, which, as we know, is a little bit of a curse.
Oh, come on, man. Oh, God, I've got to use the crap camera now. That's just perfect. You know what I mean?
Hello
Anyway.
to our wonderful audience who have joined us, and for anyone who is playing the Our Remington's Blinds or Down game, you may never get your answer.
Yeah,
See him?
you'll get your answer. Can you see me now? You can't see me.
We
You
cannot
will
see
do,
him.
though. You will do.
In the
There
chat,
you
we do
go.
have... Oh, there we go. And we can see that the blinds are, in fact, up, which means that Cullen got it right. So, well, Cullen. Internet points there. The gold earned already. Also got Dave Kitely in there. We have more people who have not commented yet. So, on a bit of a slow week. Obviously, we're feverishly gearing up for the festive season. When it comes to Warhammer, there's usually something spicy that comes along. I was asking you, Mr. Remington, before the show, if there was anything you wanted to talk about this news, other than a little bit. And you did remind me that festive season approaching, GW usually like to put out a few Christmassy army boxes, don't they, this time of year? With a bit of a special deal attached to them.
Special deals. Now, I can't quite remember. When these boxes come out, Andy, are they available all year round, or are they just around for the season?
Well, I think most of the boxes they come out with, there's limited quantities of them. I'm not sure whether that applies to the start collecting boxes now.
Right, so they're not start collecting boxes, but you'll see some, you'll see some bigger box. They're bigger, aren't they? They're basically bigger boxes. I can recall a few just offhand. One of the ones that I didn't pick up that I wished I did were the Gloomspike Gits ones. And they seem to be a pretty good deal, to be honest. But in this show, you and I, Andy, and our friends in the audience, we're gonna speculate on which Christmas boxes will come out and what might they have in them. So try and think about any underserved armies, if you will. Okay. Or will they rejig things that they've rejugged before?
So really what you're asking people is to figure out which models in the range don't sell very well. How many of them can they cram into one juicy box at a cut down price and make them seem appealing for a few weeks?
Well, yeah, in a word, probably.
So, audience, let's hear your thoughts on that. Also, what we want to hear from you as well. What are you looking forward to release-wise, not just bundle deals, but new stuff that's coming around the festive season? And what are you hoping to get for Christmas? Or any of the other various holidays around this time of year?
And speaking of Christmas, Andy, we did reveal on the show, quite exclusive, if you didn't look at Games Workshop website, that is, the red Gobbo miniature looked pretty cool. Well, that is available now. However, it will get delivered to you in 180 days' time, which is something like Easter time. So order your red Gobbo now on a squig. It's a terrific miniature, by the way. and you get it by Easter, which seems a bit
It
strange because
did
it's
look.
Christmas themed.
I first saw someone complaining about that, and it did look just like a mistake on the website. Surely they wouldn't delay. But if they're fully backed up with everything they've got planned, and the first batch of them already gone, maybe they just can't squeeze it in.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're really seeing the depths of this supply crisis that we're seeing all over retail. I mean, you may have noticed, Andy, have you been to the shops recently, seen any sort of empty-ish spaces? I mean, just take dog food, for example. I mean, I can't get the dog biscuits my dog likes anymore, but what they've done in Aldi is they've sort of covered up the gap with other products, well, more of other products. So less products, but more of the same. Does that even make sense?
I've
Less
noticed a similar
variety.
thing, but with salt and vinegar crisps, actually.
Interesting.
All varieties around here, extremely short.
Wow.
Considering that's my flavour of choice, it's very distressing.
Yeah. Well, it seems that, in Britain, we got austerity for 10 years. And we're going to get a double dosage of it, really, now with Brexit as well. But it's what the people wanted, apparently. So
Apparently
suck,
it is.
suck it up, suck it up. You know what I think it was, Andy? I don't know if I've mentioned it on the show, and it's not particularly political because I know you don't like to talk about that stuff. But I'm going to call it boomer's guilt.
I
What do you
think
think
that's a
about that?
fair name for this phenomenon.
Yeah, boomer's guilt. What do you think I mean by that?
I'm assuming that you're blaming most of the world's ills on a particular generation.
No, I think Brexit. I'm saying Brexit is a boomer's guilt. And what I
Specifically
mean,
Brexit, but I think most of the problems can probably be traced back to slightly older. Well,
yeah, absolutely. Because if you take the boomer generation, right, those that were born about 1946 and beyond that, for 10 or 15 years after that, they have actually been the beneficiaries of all the greatest things ever, right? So they've had full pensions, they've had sick pay, they've had an amazing national health service. They've had, pensions, retirement, full-time jobs, and jobs that would last a lifetime traditionally, okay? And cheap housing. And what they haven't had is a world war, right? Which their parents and grandparents had. And it's almost like they feel guilty and want a reason to suffer so they can say, "Oh, when I was, I remember the tough old days." And it's almost like they want a sort of a bleak winter to say they lived through it. Does this all make sense? It kind of
it
makes
does a little
sense to
bit. The
me.
way I look at it, these older generations, if you ask them what's the purpose of life, what's your goal, quite often you'll hear
Yeah.
something along the lines of to allow their children to have a better life, to leave the world a better place for their children to live in than when they came into it. But their actions don't really jive with that ethos, do they? A lot of the time.
Um. Yeah. Give me an example. That's interesting.
So if we're talking about, for example, a really juicy example here. Okay, in America, there's a big deal made of student loans. For example.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, of course. Boomer generation got free education all the way up. My sister,
Yes. So
older
while
sister, she got a
allegedly,
free degree, free
al-
MA.
allegedly they want to create a better world and
Yeah.
a better quality of life for the next generation, specifically their own children, but just
Yes.
in general,
Yes.
they are quite opposed to anyone having what they perceive as an easier ride than them when it actually comes down to it.
But they had the easiest ride of any generation ever.
Exactly. So it's not a very good situation for them to be in, is it, with that attitude?
But there is some logic in what they're saying because what we could be seeing over the next 20 years is the biggest transference of wealth in history from the boomer generation to Generation X or the millennials,
Well, let's
perhaps.
hope it's distributed somewhat evenly and not to these space billionaires.
I've got a feeling that the only two things certain in life, apparently, are death and taxes. And I think the latter will take its toll big time. Right. So that's our little politics side. It's not really politics, isn't it? It's sort of life's big questions, Andy. there.
Yes, I think we need a little soundbite for that, don't we? Life's big question, and a sound effect to go with it with that segment. So, while people are still digesting the festive ideas, the festive juices swirling around in their brains, and they're going to what they'd like to see in one of the Christmas bundles, we have a quick look through the Warhammer community and see what's been brewing on there. So, lots of 40k stuff, which we're not really going to touch on because mostly a fantasy gaming show, and got a bit of meta watch going on in there. So, for anyone who keeps up with the tournament scene, which I increasingly am, as I've been tuning into various competitive YouTube channels. And I know you check out one or two of them, don't you, as well? AOS channels with the stats and the list breakdowns.
I do. I like to see the paint jobs. I like to see, who will win. I like to see a bit of tactics now and then. I haven't had that much time on my hands, and those sort of videos can take to an hour to watch, I think.
If it's a Warhammer Weekly episode, occasionally it'll go like 4.5 hours if they're breaking something down. But I have actually been watching all those lately, and Stormkeep, I think, is the new Stormcast Eternals one I've been watching as well. Juicy advice there, the Ethercast. And there's quite a bit of spicy statistics gamer as well, who I knew you watched of.
Yeah, not recently though. I haven't seen it for a long time.
So, if we have a look here, I think the way GW do this, even though people have complained maybe that their stats aren't as accurate as some of the people out there in the community, it gives you a general idea at how things are going for various factions without having to delve into too many stats. It's just nicely laid out for you, a quick little article. You can see, obviously, everyone would agree that Sons of Beermat wiping the floor with everyone at the moment. The idea behind them being successful seems to be that they're so big and hard to shift that they can just sit on an objective and it's your job to move them off. And if your army isn't capable of killing them fast enough, you just auto lose.
And just give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to adjust the internet positioning because I think I'm having a few issues here. So let me just fix that while you're keeping the audience entertained with this week's releases.
Well, I don't know if there's to look at, but we'll continue to look down here and talk about stats. So I think this is an interesting article, and if you want more info after getting a taste for it with this article, then those channels that I mentioned, there's probably channels for other factions as well that I haven't paid attention to. Faction-specific channels. Play those factions, so I'm following those ones. But if you then dive into some of their very long analytical videos, then even if you're not that obsessed with taking the ultimate hardcore list, you can pick up little tips here and there. So if, like me, you own a little bit of everything in your and you haven't got spam of anything, except maybe ballistas, then if you hear a certain unit type being mentioned a lot, then you have options in a box, maybe you'll lean towards that one. You don't have to build your whole army exactly like they say, but you can pick up little bits here and there that'll make your force a little bit more effective and competitive. And Remington has disappeared, so let's go for the technical difficulty there. Because obviously he totally messes up my layout when he disappears. As you can see, requires 2 people being in the Discord. It's dragged out of position. I'm sure he'll be back. Colin says, get Remington the rules for Kings of War. That's probably a fine idea, except he has trouble keeping up with the rules for one game system at the moment. Different gear. Did the show actually start on time? Yes, it did, which is a bit of a rarity, but we did start on the dot. Okay, so who else is here watching? We've got quite a few viewers at the moment. Colin says, going to hope I get stuff for my King's Gobbos. I don't think I need anything for my King's Goblins. I've got quite a large army. I don't really have much of the newer stuff from the last batch of pieces that they years ago. I don't really have any of that in the army. I'm not really feeling the need for it at the moment. Still no sign of Remington. Probably rebooted it. Imagine he'll be here any moment. Lazy Pirate Painting says Rift Forged Orcs for Christmas. That would be nice, wouldn't it? We're actually going to be looking at the Rift Forged Orcs a little bit because I don't think Rem's seen them. We're going to be exposing him when he pops back in here. when we finish browsing through the Warhammer community a bit. And I believe there was just some activity on his Discord account there. So maybe almost finished sharing himself and he'll be back in any moment. That would be nice, wouldn't it? So I asked the question about what people would like Christmas on the Discord server, and Zato, who I can reveal, unless there is some unforeseen circumstances, is going to be a guest on this show very soon. Says Nagash and or Omega Gargants would be pretty sweet. Those would be some pretty sweet presents, wouldn't they? On the expensive side. Or Kritza and Anika as well. They aren't exactly great in the game, but the sculpts are beyond amazing to me. Sounds fair. And Colin is a bit more specific in here and says he wants Luggets for his King of Goblins. You know what I think would make a great Christmas present? One of the new massive Stormcast dragons. That would be something good to hope for. And you see, when I'm thinking of Christmas presents, particularly if it's family, send them a list of stuff and say, here's some ideas that I might like for Christmas. Otherwise, people just give each other vouchers, don't they? It's exciting. Then, typically, I don't send them wargaming stuff because it's cheaper to buy lots of stuff in bulk generally. So then if you go into one of the third-party discount websites like Your Element Games or Firestorm or something like that, then you can reach the free postage threshold. You order a lot of stuff at once. I don't typically ask for gaming-related items for Christmas, but with some of the bigger stuff, if it's just one big chunk, if you've got any particularly generous relatives, then obviously buy for postage most of the time, with the price point that some of those big beasties are at. Lazy Pirate Painting says, Remington should just sell his Warhammer stuff and buy a Kings of War army and hit the top scene next. That would be an interesting plot twist, but I can't see it happening. I think he should have a Kings of War army regardless, and now that there are proper halfling rules, maybe he'll be open to that. Yeah. So, let's see if we can do something. Oh, I think he's back. Regardless. Remington is back and he's listening to this show audibly. Okay, let's get rid of technical difficulties because he's here. We can't actually see him yet.
I'm coming. That was mental. My internet just went down and I had to go to cellular data briefly. I had to do lots of things. I've managed to fix it. I'm back. Don't stress, Andy.
Good. Well, members of the audience are saying that you should be playing Kings of War, especially now that halfling are out. Say to that.
Yeah, you know, I was looking at those halflings, and I must admit they were pretty tempting, Andy. And also, I found TT Combat on eBay are doing halfling braves, which are basically halfling berserkers, and they've put out a neat range, to be fair. But my favourite line of halflings is still the Marauder miniature ones and White Knight miniatures, who and a different seller sells them. But if you go to White Knight miniatures, they do some terrific Marauder like halflings, and the halflings on the cocks, on the roosters even. Yeah.
So many halfling manufacturers out there. Kings of War ones certainly have a slightly different spin on it, with their a little bit different, the technology that they have access to, that faction. They've got trolls, flying dogs, and a few unique things, rather than just throwing their hat into the overcrowded halfling pool. Definitely throwing their hat in there with some extra feathers and a bit of sparkle.
Oh, for sure. And I tell you what, talking of Kings of War halflings, the ones in the airships, they've got these little airships, and the ones that are the grenadiers, I'm very tempted with those. And also, there's ones that I think they're calling them halfling poachers. So you get 10 halflings with bows, and they're like sort of scouts, and you get another few on dogs, on scouts, and just they look really cool. So they're the ones that I'm tempted to get at the minute. But I have vowed not to buy any more miniatures until I've painted my Silver Tower miniature. Sorry, I've painted my Cursed City miniatures, right? Um, so I've got a few characters left to paint and a few of the Gribblies,
Well,
and then I've got loads of Nighthaunt left from Mortal Realms,
can
and
I
yeah,
suggest, though, that
yeah,
with the armies that you like, Daughters of Cain, Gloomspite Gits, Rule Boy's the new spicy thing, of course, and AOS as well.
yeah.
So you've got all those three. Do you need to prioritise Nighthaunt? Are they ever going to see the table?
I don't think so, but I feel a bit bad because I bought all those editions of Mortal Realms and gave you a bunch of the Stormcast, and so I've got all these. I don't know what to do with them. I don't know why I even subscribed to it. I
If you've
got
got no interest in Nighthaunt,
oh
you could
man,
sell them, free up that spot in your painting schedule for a Kings of War halfling army. Something new, something that wouldn't be competing with your other things.
well, I actually have a huge halfling army on square bases. It ranked up,
You do,
so
and
I'm ready to. I'm ready to
they would
go.
fit in nicely if you had some of like the balloon halflings, the
Yeah,
dog cavalry, some of that stuff.
yeah.
Mix it in. For the
I mean,
trolls.
are they doing well? Are people,
I
people
assume they're flying off the
buying
shelves
it?
because I've seen a lot of people with painted armies,
Right.
and
Okay.
people were demanding Kings of War halflings for a long time. So I assume they're doing just.
Right. Have you seen the sort of rules for them or read any of the lore behind them?
Yes. So the rules for
Hmm.
them are in the new Kings book, the yearly update for Kings. So I can show you that. And the background for them, they used to be part of the League of Rordia, which is that was the name for the faction that included halflings previously, but they've now split off, do their own thing, and that's as much as I know because I don't read much of the fluff.
Yeah.
But they've gone off to do their own thing now, and they're not as goody two shoes as maybe you'd think halflings would. Not the
No.
friendliest of society, so
No.
I think it would be interesting for you project.
Yeah, I like those grenadiers. I might get those grenadiers and the poachers. I mean, see, the grenadiers are great because it's just 3 models, isn't it? It's not like I'm painting a huge unit. You can put some TLC into 3 models. But speaking of models and box sets, that's not a very good link at all. But it's because you've got this picture of these new, you know, what are these elves called again?
The Lumineth Realm
That's it.
Lord.
My first prediction for a Christmas box set will be a Lumineth Realm Lords one, and I predict there's going to be one of those mountain creatures with the big hammers in it. Going to be some horsemen of some kind in it, some cavalry, and there's going to be a hero, and there's going to be some archers. What do you think?
Unless something like that already exists, which is often the case when you try and come up with something.
Well, I think it's going to be more than £100, so that's mine. Everyone else got some ideas, but yeah, I mean,
I'd like to see
yeah,
one Caradron Overlords. I'm thinking the start collecting box at the moment. It's got some of the elite troops and a gun hauler in it. How about one with an ironclad? Because why not 2 ironclad added to this one? And some of the other stuff that isn't currently in a multi-box. For example, there's an Endrin map with the suit that allows him to fly around. I'd like to see one of those in a box. And I'm not sure what else because the range is so limited.
yeah, I can't see getting anything to be fair because of that limited range. And there's already a start collecting box. I can't see it, and they've already appeared in a box set, haven't they? Against Zinch. Remember that one? So that you got some Zinch models, flying Zinch models, and you had those. I mean, you got any predictions? You said you'd like Carriage and Overlords, but let's be realistic. I mean, what's been released in the last year or two?
If we're being realistic, do the Deepkin have anything? I'm sure everyone's got a start collecting box,
The,
but
the
the
Deepkin had
Deepkin
a
have got.
great one. They
They,
had a really good one, yeah. So they've got their start collecting box, but they had one. It was really good. You got the Tidecaster with that beautiful female model. I think you've got something like 6 of the eels. You got 2 sharks. Um, you got a load of bowmen. Uh, and it was all for like it was a really good value deal. And in my local shop, it was like 20% off as well. And I looked at that box. I thought, oh, I don't know. Should I get this? I wish I had and just not opened it because I could have sold it for a heck of a lot more. That's for sure. If I didn't want to start that army myself, but that was a really good deal. And it's it was there and then it was gone, and it was much better value than the start collecting box. So but, just to answer a few questions in the chat, people are asking about, can Andy teach me? Andy's actually a very good teacher, so I'm sure he can, refresh my mind on Kings of War with my halflings as well, because I think I've got a bit of everything that I would possibly need. Right?
Hopefully,
I don't have any dog cavalry, but I've got
hopefully
horse
you can
cavalry.
fit more than one rule system at once.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm banking on, Andy, is next year, because I think next year we're going to see a lot more about the old world, Warhammer Fantasy Old World coming back, square bases, and definitely dual use. Speaking of Christmas boxes, once more, I think the Cruel Boys are going to get one. That's a prediction.
Do you think it might be a bit too soon for them to have
No,
their stuff discounted?
Oh, yeah, it might be too soon because of the supply thing. I'd be a bit surprised, but they might want to include a monster in there. Yeah, I can see that happening. If not sooner, then definitely later. And there's bound to be a silly Stormcast one.
Well, Stormcast have had about 1 billion different bargain boxes. I don't know how they could think one, but I'm sure they'll find a way to do it just to sell stuff that isn't doing very well right now.
So what are you showing me here? Is this a Stormcast
Well,
first place victory?
this whole stat meta watch thing where they're breaking
Right.
down which factions are doing well in the tournament scene, and I rested it here because this is a bit of a warning for you. So now, obviously, I don't have 1,000 Dracoths, but a big tournament was won by somebody using nothing but Dracoths. So there was a Lord Celestant on a Dracoth. There were 2 lots of 2 ones I have. 2 lots of 2 Desolators, 2 lots of 2 Fulminators, and then a unit of 4 Tempest, and that won. So nothing but Dracoths, and they are spicy now. And you know who they go well with, because it's Hammers of Sigmar sub-faction. So, Dracoths being battle line, and who is the boss of the Hammers of Sigmar? But good old Bastion, who you can see has been started here.
Nice.
Gold. I'm thinking that could be a bit of a spicy thing. I might add some more Dracoths to my army. Maybe just another 2. Because I don't want to buy 1,000. I've got so many. But I'm tempted by the wielding Tempest, actually.
So if you're riding on a dragon, why would you need a crossbow?
Because then you can shoot people and then charge them and eat them.
Christ almighty. So I imagine this army doesn't have many models in it. Would I be right?
Well, this one here doesn't have any models in it. This particular list that did very well.
So it's got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16 dragon riders, right?
Plus the boss.
Plus the boss. What are the fulminators? Are they?
Fulminators are the spear ones, which everyone's going crazy for at the moment. 1 billion wound charge.
Well, of course, because they just make up extraordinary rules as they go along for Stormcast, don't they? We've got Desolators. Are they the crossbow ones?
Desolators are the axe-wielding ones.
Okay.
And they're not very popular, actually.
Right.
People don't tend to those.
I'm assuming the concussors have got big hammers.
Concussors are the ones I have with the massive hammers that just good old reliable damage, whether you charge or not, they just kill everything.
Okay, so how many wounds does a Dracoth have? Is it like 5 or 6?
I think I can actually tell you exactly how many they have now. I believe it's like 7 or 8 or something. Let's check to make absolutely sure. I don't think I've used them lately. In the last few games, I certainly haven't used them. I'll just confirm, so we're only giving top-notch information here. So they have 6 wounds each. So it's not a huge number of wounds. But obviously, they have their decent save.
Have they got any ways of restoring wounds in this list?
Only if you heal them somehow. There are various healing effects. They have too many
Yeah.
wounds to benefit from something like the Indrasta raising a dead model. That's 3 wounds or
Yeah.
less.
And I can't see any of them suffering from battle shock, really. It's rare, isn't it, with Sigmar models?
Yes, you won't really have to worry about that with this.
No, and each model has got a flame attack, right?
Yes.
And
The
that's pretty
Dracoth's
devastating.
lightning breath attack, which from coming from this many of them is actually devastating. Normally it'll just
Yeah.
do wounds here and there.
And mortal wounds, right?
Yes. I think the Lord Celestant on Dracoth has 8 wounds.
I mean, look, Andy, I'm not. I mean, I think you think I will be surprised that this list is winning or a Storm class is winning, but I'm not at all surprised because they just keep adding more and more Stormcast stuff until they are the best. I mean, it's only a matter of time, isn't it? It stands to reason. Like every other army, or nearly every other army, has just very limited models, like the Kharadron Overlords.
It's an unusual phenomenon, though, because especially the Fulminators, I think, are seen as the hotness at the moment. But they're definitely not new. Dracoths have been around pretty much the entire length of Age of Sigmar, and they've now made them spicier.
Yeah.
You would think they would give all the cool rules only to the new models.
Yeah.
But
So
no.
just using your tactical nonce, Andy, if you were to face this list, what sort of things would you be thinking about to take down an all monstrous cavalry list like this?
Well, first thing would be to not let the Fulminators charge you.
Yep.
To make sure you hit them first. And
Yep.
apart from that, they're going to be a little bit vulnerable to mortal wounds, maybe.
Well, they're going to have
relying on some juicy armor saves. I'm sure you've taken out lots of my Stormcast units with mortal wounds before. That's some good universal advice.
Yeah, I think I've always done well against your Dracoths, to be fair. I mean, so what sort of things could take these down in combat? Well, you're looking at stuff like Iron Guts could do that, right? So high damage or multiple mortal wounds.
High damage, mortal wounds, lots of rend would be nice as well.
Spells. I mean, if you've got a unit of night goblins, they just wouldn't stand any chance whatsoever. I can't see. Yeah, you know what I mean? They just get trampled afoot, mortal wounds. They don't give out.
But you do get a lot of goblins for the price of one of these, though. If you're sitting on the objectives, there's not going to be that many of them compared to your 1,000 goblins you could get for that many points.
Right, so you could. What you're saying is you bog them down, but there's a lot.
You certainly could, because it's a decent chunk of the list, the Fulminators, and if they're not charging, and I don't think there's anything in here that would allow them to like run away and then charge again, as far as I can see.
Well, you've played against my Daughters of Cain, so what if you were playing Daughters of Cain against this this dragon list? What sort of models could do anything against them, right?
Well, Marathi.
Yeah, you haven't got Marathi.
Well, I think you would definitely want Marathi if you're going against any kind of competitor. Marathi's the one who can only take like 3 wounds a turn or something. So it's almost impossible to kill her. Or it is impossible to kill her early in the game.
It's tough. I think you need a big monster in your list, maybe. You need a monster, right? Or more. I mean, do you think your giant could do well against these?
Well, if you've got some big monsters, you could be using the monstrous, what's it called? Monstrous rampage to roar on them to stop them getting command abilities. Stop them getting attack.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do they get some sort of trample attack as well? I'm not too sure about that.
The monsters do get to like after combat kind of stomp.
Yeah, it's a tough list, man. Just looking at that, but the thing is, the more the more Stormcast they keep pumping out, you're gonna get more Stormcast versus Stormcast, and it's not something I've never seen that. Have you seen that? I've not seen a battle report on YouTube. Have you?
I don't remember seeing one. I'm sure there are plenty of them.
I'm not so sure, but it's going to happen more and more. And then you think, well, how would the law justify that? And then what you're going to get is some kind of chaosy evil Stormcast, aren't you? Right?
Well, I would definitely recommend that people check out this article to a bit of spice, and why not? Because even if you're only playing casual games, learn a little bit about one or two of your options, your army list that might be good, that make what you're doing a little bit more effective. So why not? Next, Armies on Parade 2021 ceremony is and
Nice.
anyone who's more into the hobby aspect. So it's got Remington written all over it, that kind of viewing action.
I think I could do well on this, you know. If I had a decent board, right?
That'd be another thing you could have a go-to, a display board.
You see, this is the dream, innit, Andy? This is why, you know, Remington's Millions, if it comes true, then I can quit my day job. Spend more time on this sort of stuff. That's the dream, innit?
That would be nice. Next, I don't really know what's going on. Sneaky Gits cartoon. Okay, there's a list of stuff. Joke. Then, Kings of War Rift Forged Or. So, Army is available now. And I've looked at these on my Kings of War Wednesday, but I thought you might like to have well. So,
Yeah, let's get some
let's
close-ups.
have a look at the
man.
mega army, and we can go through all the individual items in there. So let's view gallery. So here we go. So they're on kind of manticore-like creatures. Some of them that fly, in fact.
Yeah, they look decent. Yeah, keep going, Andy. Let's
They
see
have
what
been
else.
referred to as Stormcast orcs before.
Yeah,
They're basically orcs that have been fighting in hell and being well equipped, dying over and over again, and to hone their skills and been unleashed the world.
sounds like just a day at work for me. Really, that over and over again.
Sounds about right. Is the aesthetic grabbing you at all?
They look a bit Mordor-esque kind of orcs, which is kind of cool. I mean, I like my goofy orcs to be fair. That's what I kind of like. So, not for me. No, I wouldn't say that. But I'm not saying they're bad miniatures. I think they're definitely an upgrade from a lot of the earlier Mantic efforts. You know.
They're way better than the other orcs. I think maybe the fact that they've come hot on the heels of the halflings may not
Yeah.
be the best thing for them.
So
I think halflings are just going to fly off the shelves like hot cakes.
So what's changed at Mantic? Have they got different designers? Have they got different molding process? Do you know the gossip there?
Well, I'm sure in the last few years they've started spending more on their painting the
Right.
official army shots. So they're like
Yeah.
their studio armies painted to a much higher standard than they used to be. I think that is the main thing. But also, as technology improves, even the smaller companies improve their quality over time, don't they?
Yeah. I do like the scenery there. I have to admit, you know the big giant tooth fences.
Yes, I'm not sure if there's something.
Yeah, they should do that. They should do scenery, man, because that's like universal too, isn't it?
Sure. So, how about we look at some things that we've been doing?
Sure.
Dun dun dun. It only took me 5 years to add new units to the Caradron Overlords, but here they are.
I can't believe it's been 5 years since these guys come out. Is that really true?
Yes, roughly.
Wow.
So these are the Endrin riggers, which are of the two options you have for the flying units. You've got them and the Sky Warriors, and I prefer the look of these ones. I think no, definitely brings together the coolness of the colour scheme. You saw recently I did the snow onto my old models that I'd painted back in the day, plucked out all the grass and then snowed over them. So these ones have just gone straight for the snow. I think these look pretty tasty, don't you?
So yeah, it's how have you found painting them? Has it been interesting, monotonous? Is it a lot of washes? If you had to,
Well, last
what's it been
time when I
like?
was painting them, I just burned myself out because I painted 31 infantry in a really short space of time. And the way I painted them, base coat, wash, and then all the blue and the white, like painstakingly painted over the wash, avoiding the recesses to give it like that highlight. And the fact that they've got so many little belts and pockets and pouches meant that it became really draining to do them back then. But I'm refreshed now, I haven't painted them for ages, and fairly enjoyable actually. There's lots of detail on them, but you don't need to pick out all of it. So the basis of these models, core of the look for me, is the silver, which then has a blue glaze over it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not too much that needs doing with that. It doesn't really need highlighting after.
I like the fact there's different shades of blue, different glazes of blue. That's what it seems like.
The blue armor, and then there's the blue which is used more on the fabric.
Yeah, that works, man. That works. I do look forward to taking these guys out piece by piece.
Then we've got the Thunderers here with all the different weapon options.
I think that's going to be awkward in the game because you know what I mean. It's not just like right, I've got 5 guys shooting. Now it's like okay, this one's going to shoot with this stats, and this next one, you know what I mean. It's going to be like me with my
It
minimum
can
strength
do,
unit.
but once you know the rules for the unit, you've got it down, you've played it a couple of times, slow down the game. Actually, obviously it would be quicker if they all had the same weapon, but that's not always the best way to run. When you have each one of the different weapons, they do get bonuses.
They look like weapons of great power at short range. That'd be fair to say.
Most of them are pretty short range, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, dwarves with blunderbusses, can't go wrong.
Then we've got the Chemist. Now this guy is actually from the Underworld's War. So if I just go back to the other ones for a second, you'll notice that the leaders of all the units have a tiny bit of gold on them. Usually like a shoulder pad or a knee pad. And I've decided all the heroes will have some gold on them as well. He's got a little gold plate on top of his head there. Little respirator or what. That's got some gold elements to it.
I like that, Andy, because it makes the gold more precious, doesn't it? Rather than all their armor being gold and whatnot, you know, it doesn't become special anymore. So, Andy, have you got the rule book for these? You've got the latest?
I have.
Right, and so have you decided what Caradron faction they're going to belong to?
I have not, actually, because it seemed like such a long way off that I would actually have an army I could put on the table that I haven't looked at too closely yet. But that is something I am going to start doing now. But there's more. Also, the Endron Master here, and he's got a bit of gold on the end of the hammer. So used sparingly again. Not much gold there. But I like the contrast of having the blue on the armor, on the actual armor itself, and then all the extra accessories hanging off and all the weapons not having blue on them.
Nice. Now, one thing the Caradrons don't have is a monster, right? I mean, you could count their airships, I suppose. But
They do have some monstrous attributes. So once this fact, you know, I told myself that I wasn't allowed to take the plastic off this until I'd finished painting the entire start collecting box.
Yeah.
Which means, spoiler for the next thing you're going to see, actually take the plastic off it right now, live on camera, and I can allow myself to start assembling that at some point this week. Because I have actually, it's exclusive Andy news. So it's now out of the plastic, start assembling that frosty. That means, of course, that the other part of the start collecting box must be complete, which is after this picture. So what are we looking at here? This looks like one of your... This Cursed City, this one? You said you were working.
Yeah, this is the elf from Cursed City. I'm working my way through the heroes. I've got the ogre to do and the spellcasters and a couple of the gribblies. You get so many bats and rats. I got sick of painting them. But yeah, this one was kind of nice to paint. It's a nice break, really. So yeah, she could fit right in with my wood elves. I could say she's some sort of way watcher, right? And I do have a full wood elf army or
Certainly do.
wanderer's army. I'd like to use them. I've got a feeling they wouldn't really stand up to your Stormcast, Andy. But you know, if you had different armies, like some sort of destruction or chaos armies, that could be interesting matchup. Or you know, undead army, maybe that could be interesting. But yeah, I want to take my wanderers out on a journey. So yeah, I think that's kind of cool.
Cool model. Speaking of
Yeah.
cool, dun dun dun, it is the gun hauler completed. So, same colour scheme, of course. Sky blue and the white. Blue metal. Then for the ship, blue metal is around the bottom of the ship there and around the various sails and pillars and whatnot. And then I don't even know what these bits are called. Like the engine, the part that actually makes it fly and contains the essential flying ingredients. That's all in one blue metal. I think it looks
It looks a little bit cartoony. Is that just a picture, or
I think it does
is
a
that
little bit more from
intentional?
that angle. I think this angle looks a bit better.
Yeah, yeah, it does. You can see more of the white, and it contrasts nice. What you can't see so good is all the rivets. I think some people made a much more of a deal out of the rivets than you have, haven't they? And I know there's a lot of them on these models.
Yes,
That's a bit better.
so for the rivets, rather than actually picking them out, I've kind of painted round them. So there's a
Yeah.
little tiny bit of the darker colour around each one. Rather than picking it out, I've kind of picked out the surrounding area of the rivet instead.
Were you tempted to put some rusty, dark-looking wash around them?
No, because I like all my stuff to look pretty fresh,
And
generally.
what about some sort of wear and tear effects, rust and the like?
I haven't been tempted at all on.
Scratches,
I like
maybe
everything to look fresh out of the port.
You know, one battle I would have loved for us to do, just for the comedy factor, would be Savage Orcs, Savage Aurochs, right? Against Kharadron Overlords. It would be almost like the equivalent of, you know, jungle natives fighting aliens in spaceships. I think it'd be pretty one-sided game, but it might be fun.
I don't think GW have really been giving much to the... Is it the Bone Splitters they're called now?
Yes,
They've
yeah.
really neglected them.
I guess
Some
there's
people
not.
suggesting they might
Yeah,
even be like getting rid of them entirely at some point.
yeah. No, I can see that. I can see them fading out. Really. I mean, it's a shame, really. But the thing is, you know, you can't have naked savages against such highly developed futuristic weaponry, right? I mean, how many variants of Savage Orc can you really get? That's a problem, isn't it? You know, they've got spears, they've got clubs, they've got bows, and they've got teeth. You know,
That is true.
but I would like to see, yeah, that getting pummeled with a load of spears and you know, rocks and fruit and arrows. Be funny. And maybe a more boy jumping on top of it, trying to smash it.
It would be fun for a diorama. Now, this model did take quite a while to paint for. There's a lot going on. Even if a lot of it's going to be the same colour, the way I'm painting them, where I'm painting it over the again, but it can take a while, especially with white, because you build up multiple layers of that. So
Yeah, tough.
so it did take a while, but like the effects at the end, the only parts I painted separately with 2 crew members, and then I stuck them on. No way I would have been able to paint all the. Pretty pleased with how this has come out.
There's no red. I mean, if you had red, you could they could look like, you know, a real British force, couldn't they? Red, white, and blue, French. Be fun.
All the ships, the decorations on the front are going to have the gold as well, which is another time this army, very sparingly. So yeah.
if you get the ironclad, can you put all of your models into a 2,000 point list?
Could I get to 2,000 points with an ironclad? I don't know if I'm quite at that level yet. I need a little bit more to 2,000. I'll have to go in the app and see how many points I've got. But I have got a second start collecting box as well, waiting in.
Wow.
So I'm going to be working on that after the ironclad. So after that, I should have an army that's sized games. At the moment, I could still play a game right now. It just wouldn't be optimal. I would run Overlord tactics. A lot of them would just start plonked on the table and walk towards you, which isn't ideal. So once the ironclad's done, a lot more in keeping with how they're supposed to play.
Nice, man. And my mind harks back to last week, Andy. I don't know if any of you guys in the chat got to see our interview with the Jayberry, but I felt it was a good show. And it was really well received, wasn't it, Andy?
It was, and it's done good numbers as well compared to some of the other recent episodes.
Yeah, I think people responded well, and I think she genuinely had a great time on our show.
I think true.
So, you know, if you would like more guests like that, let us know. Perhaps you would like to see Joey back. I would. Well, it was really cool.
Did I tell you who our next guest is going to
be? Did you say Zato?
Yes. Who is actually in the chat right now saying that my Caradrons look snazzy.
Nice.
Next guest confirmed, hopefully, next week.
Well, Zato has always been a very keen painter and some really good stuff I've seen over the years. Perhaps Zato could share
some wisdom.
Yeah. And some painting tips, right?
And of course, someone who's heavily been getting into Age of Sigmar recently, so we'll be able to possibly impart some fellow. It feels weird to say beginner wisdom, but maybe refreshing wisdom. Like you're not a beginner, but you're refreshing yourself in recent months.
Yeah,
we did build up that knowledge base, and then we kind of missed the entire second edition of AOS, didn't we?
Yeah,
for the most part. I think that's going to be a good show.
So Andy, you know these sort of supply issues that GW and many other retailers are facing. When do you think it will settle down? How long do you think it will take?
It could take quite a while. I think the issue is, at the moment, they announced certain things, and then there were unforeseen circumstances that hit. So whether they should have foreseen that is a different debate. But they announced a lot of stuff in advance, didn't they? If we're talking the last 6 months or so. Dragons. Seems like a lifetime ago that the dragons were. They're not even available yet. A lot of them have already been nerfed, the FAQ, and they haven't even come out yet.
It's funny. Got you.
So I think they'll probably learn from that. Maybe they'll tone down how far in advance they're announcing everything. Maybe.
Wow, Colin Mack's predicting a couple of years. That's 8 quarters, isn't it? That's a long time. I mean, I'd like to think it would, well, hopefully be less than 6 months. But who knows? I mean, we've never had in our lifetimes or our parents' lifetimes anything like the pandemic we've just lived through. And, you know, so, wow. I mean, could this be the catalyst, Andy, for home 3D printing?
Well, I don't know if
it already happened.
I don't know if it needed a catalyst, but it may have nudged more people towards it, possibly, with the supply issues thing. obviously you still need things to do 3D printing. So
I mean,
whether they
could
would
you?
be in
Yeah, I mean,
or
could you foresee a time when just like, home paper printers or home computers, a lot of people have 3D printers? I mean, not for modeling, but let's say you wanted to just print out a piece of plastic or something domestic, right?
so
And
here's
do
a
you
question
think?
for you. Do you have a printer in your home that can print high quality photographs?
No.
I would say that most people probably don't. A lot of people like me probably just have a standard kind of black and white laser printer. So if I want actual physical photos, I still have to rely on other companies providing that service somehow. I think just because the technology is there to have it in your home doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's going to pick it up. Because there's still maintenance that has to be done on those machines in your
Oh yeah.
keep up with the supplies for it. And
Absolutely, Andy. I imagine that it'd be really hard. Just because you've got a good printer doesn't mean you're going to get a perfect model, right? The design might look perfect, but you might not get the mixture right, or something might be not aligned properly.
people
And
might want a lot of stuff faster than create it, maybe. There's going to be issues with the prints sometimes.
yeah, yeah.
So I think that you may have a time in the future when everything is, and
Would that mean, Andy,
seems
that
quite likely.
GW could just be a sort of a designer, so they would just design miniatures, and you would buy the files.
Well,
They wouldn't manufacture anything.
I think the technology available to the big companies is likely to stay a step ahead of available to the consumer. So who knows, you could end up with a situation where everything's 3D printed, but instead of doing it in your home, you walk to your Games Workshop store, say, I want 50 orcs, and they press a button and it just like, brrr, here's your 50 orcs, freshly printed.
So,
Who knows?
so what do you think the future is for the sort of mid-tier companies? Like Mantic and like Warlord Games and
I
those
think
sort of size.
a lot of the smaller companies are more likely to be clinging to they'll either cling to the older technology longer, budgetary reasons, if they can't keep up with newest machines, they'd keep it alive, or some of them would try to pioneer to kind of try and leapfrog the other companies on them.
Mm, fair point.
Some of them could fall flat on their face if some of these companies decide to move more of a technology that isn't fully market tested yet.
If you took the last 10 years, Andy, have those mid-tier companies been sort of flatlined or gone smaller or gone bigger in general?
As far as I'm aware, are still growing. But obviously, with everything that's in the world, hard to judge the overall industry trend in normal times, isn't it?
Do you think the smaller companies have been hit?
I think some of them definitely have. Some of them, as far as I am aware, some have totally gone out of business
Yeah,
last few years. That happens all the time, though, doesn't it?
sure.
Disappearing. It's just more factors that have made that likely. Colin Max says CO casting looks good. I've heard very mixed things on that. Some people swear by it, and a lot of companies are using it, and other people say it's the worst thing ever, and they don't want anything to do with it. So, truth, probably somewhere in the middle. It probably has its uses. Maybe some people are using it things that they ideally wouldn't want to be using. Maybe that accounts for some people who hate it. So,
Wow.
what are you hoping
Well,
for Christmas?
what in terms of hobby things?
Yes.
Don't know. I don't really want anything. I'm happy. I do like the look of those halflings. They will appear on my painting table at some point, but I would like I think I'd like to clear the backlog a bit. What I'd like to do, you know.
Is there one kind of centerpiece model that you would really like to have under your Christmas tree?
Mm,
Because it's an easy one for me because the Stormcast Dragons are going to be out by then. So one of those would fit the bill. But what about you?
maybe a giant troll for my Gloom Spike Kits army. Cave, what they call? I can't remember what they're called. You know, the big cave troll thing.
What about a Mega Gargant?
Maybe, yeah, maybe. I do like painting my big Gribblies. I mean, recently I've painted 3 Gribblies for the Cruel Boys. I might be getting. I never thought I would, but I might get the sort of swamp troll on 4 legs, with the howdah of goblins on top, with the nets. That looks like kind of a really silly model, but kind of fun. It gives some really good buffs as well. Um, so I think you're holding for me my Cruel Boys battle line unit. So once I get them done, then I'm looking towards getting 2,000 points of Cruel Boys. Very,
Yes,
very close to that.
also got your new AOS rule. Well,
Nice, nice. Yeah, well, this term is always ridiculously busy at work, so I've got another 4 weeks of it, and things should settle down a bit. I am planning on going to America in February for a week to visit my brother in California. So that'll be fun.
interesting.
Yeah. So that, and there's lots of music stuff happening for me next year, just more than I can handle, really, to be honest. Yeah.
What's on your
So,
painting table right now?
well, I have more Curse City miniatures, really. You know, I lose track of all the names of things, but yeah, it's just the Gribblies from Curse Cities. I've got the ogre character. Don't know if you can see this. Can you see this
Yeah, I think
model?
we can just about see what's. I think with the
If there's
festive
one
season
coming.
approaching, everyone's going to be adding to their big grey pile of shame, aren't they? So, perhaps this is a good time, if anyone's working on it, head over to the Andy and Rem Show Discord server and in hobby pictures, post a picture in there, whatever you're working on right now, and then see if you manage to clear out what you're working on. Time for Christmas, when presumably most people are going to get something new, even if they don't get them as presents. People might want to treat themselves around that time of year to something exciting. So that'll be interesting to keep track of. And also, speaking of Christmas and start of a year, we did actually create our bingo card, didn't we? The Andy and Rem Show bingo.
Yep.
So I think next week we might go through some of those, and I'll post a reminder of what exactly was on it on the Discord server, so start checking that off, and we'll see how we've done as well.
All right.
That'll be interesting. We can go over that with Zato next.
Nice. It would be interesting if you did clear out all your grey and you're just left with the sort of boxes of odds and sods. Because I've got loads of them too. You know what I mean? And you could just focus on those and really get all your odds and sods painted up as well.
My priority next is going to be assembling the Ironclad aerodrons and also painting Bastion, who's not going to take too long. He's one guy, slightly bigger than a Stormcast, but it's not going to take forever. Hopefully get that done in the space of a days. Got these Griffhound statues as well, actually. A lot more work.
Oh yeah. Yep.
But they're going to get worked on soon as well. I've got some World War II stuff over here, which as soon as I've got an incentive to paint things, that's usually when they fly in front of the queue. So whatever I need for something that's coming up, whether that's an event or just a game planned, start flying through that. That gun hauler wasn't even going to be finished today. I thought, you know what? It's a couple of hours before the show. There's not much that's left to be done on this. Might as well just plow through and get it done now. Get the pictures taken. Time for the show. So any little target you can set yourself helps with. Any parting words, Mr. Remington, before we start wrapping this one up?
Lovely to hang with you, Andy, and all our friends in the chat. And hopefully there'll be more Games Workshop Age of Sigmar things coming very soon, especially in the run up to Christmas. We can deep dive into those. And hopefully I'll get some time off and Andy will be free and we can get some more gaming in because we've got the models, we've got the armies, we've got the rules, we've got the dice. We just need the time.
So before we go though, just remembered, what the hell is that? Is ready for this episode. Got one brewing here. So, for anyone not familiar, I'm going to be slowly zooming out of a picture of a miniature in Warhammer Age of Sigmar range. First one to identify it is winner. So it'll be on your screen as soon as this exciting, informative intro video.
What the hell is that? What the hell is that? Is it a chaos dwarf or a vampire bear? Oh, what the hell is that? What the hell is that? Oh, what the hell is that? What the hell is that? Only Andy and Remington, Andy and Remy, Andy and Remington know. What the hell is that? What the hell is that? Is it Sigmar's beard or Neferata's hat? Oh, what the hell is that? Oh, what the hell is that? Is it a mangler squig or a sorcerer's rat? Only Andy and Remington, Andy and Remy, Andy and Remington know.
Here we go. Get those eyeballs ready, get those fingers perched above the keyboard. Because what the hell is that?
What is what?
That.
Ooh.
On the screen, it's slowly zooming out.
Looks like
What could it
armor.
be? Somebody's going to get it.
Is it a gun?
You wait until the
Oh.
whole thing's revealed, then it's just a coin toss, isn't it? Whether you get it or somebody else does, it's just your luck. If you can identify it before we've zoomed out too far, you've got an advantage there.
Oh, I don't know still. It looks futuristic.
I don't think
Or
it's
is
going
it?
to take too long to get this one. I think someone's going to get this. Bit of an easy one.
Ah, is it one of them new Spider-Men models? Arachnoid chaos things? No, is it 40k? It looks 40k-ish, Andy. He's not saying nothing. No! Oh, it's that guy. That's my favourite one.
Well, Brad got it first. Brock Grungson, the mustache
guy.
gun Caradon Overlord's hero who nobody uses because he's not.
Oh, God. How could you just make such an awesome model and make him so sucky?
Well, I'm sure I'll get one at some point. We both have the approach of just buy what's cool, at least
Yeah.
at least at the start of the army.
Yeah.
Buy a little bit of everything. In some ways, you're future-proof then, aren't you? Because whatever's good in any particular edition, you've probably got it on your shelf.
Yeah. How about future plans for 2022? Maybe we could organise RemCon for real.
Well, I think
Featuring
Remcon and
Andy
Andy Palooza could be pulled into one event.
We could. What I'm saying is, Andy, is getting some of our guests to join us in an all-star A-lister fun weekend.
I think
Could
that
that
would be
happen?
good times for all. I think we can definitely. It wouldn't take too much organising. We'll have to see what kind of interest there is, how many people, and then determine the structure the event would take.
Yeah. Well, you could work on that, and I could do all the sort of the interviews and the promo for it. I think that could work pretty well.
Sounds like fun. On that note, it's time to wrap this one up. So, as you stare at the thumbnail, don't forget, like the video if you haven't already for some reason. Don't forget to subscribe if for some weird reason you haven't. Don't forget to subscribe to Remington as well if you want to see a video once every 4 years or so. Don't forget to check out all the links in the description, including the Patreon, of course, where you can be pledging to keep this channel afloat during these dark and turbulent times, allowing it to act as a beacon, guiding you towards calm seas and away from the rocky. You get the idea. Bad stuff, we guide you towards the good stuff instead. I'm going to do that with your life savings, so hand it over. David Kirtley says 0 dislikes. That is good so far for the episode. Let's keep it that way, shall we? More likes, less dislikes. That's a good goal. Start heading towards the end. And thanks obviously to all the current patrons who are Roshi, Toon, Tim, Kevin, John, Guy, David, Cedar, Simon, and all of you. Very much thanked from the bottom of our ether hearts. And I believe to be said at this point is, in fact, two things. What you seek is still seeking you. And good night out there, whatever you are.
It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show on your screens tonight. It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show for your home delight. We're talking about Age of Sigmar and anything else that is cool. Talking about war